Hello, this is Cedric Klein with another Gospel Moment. Who are we? What are we supposed to be? What's wrong with us? And how do we get better? What does God have to say about it all? Glad you asked. Let's assume the Bible actually contains messages from God that may help us answer these questions. Does this sound reasonable? Well, if not, just go along with it for a while. Genesis 1 tells us God designed the world, concluding with making us in His image to take care of everything in the world that comes into our hands. How have we done so far? How have you done taking care of your own life? Of doing what you know to be right? Of shunning what you know to be wrong? Need improvement? Yep, me too, same as everyone else. Genesis 3 tells us our first parents messed up big. Whether there was an outside tempter or their own inner conflicts, they decided to distrust God, to take something that did not yet belong to them. That resulted in a fracture between them and a break with the very order of creation. They were cast out of their haven, sent out into a wild world, having grabbed knowledge but not yet learning wisdom. Their kids just added to that mess. With each generation, God gave guides and guardians, and blessings and disasters and rescuers. You know the tales: the flood, Noah's Ark, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Moses, the Exodus, the commandments, King David, and yet it all got worse. Even the heroes and heroines he sent couldn't do everything right, and got into their own messes. So at the right time, God stepped in directly. He always planned to. He hints at it in Genesis 3:15. He outright claims it through Isaiah 700 years before Jesus, chapter 59, verses 15 to 21. Truth fails, and he that departs from evil makes himself a prey. And the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no justice. And he saw that there was no man. He wondered there was no intercessor. Therefore his arm brought salvation unto him, and his righteousness it sustained him. For he, the Lord, put on righteousness as a breastplate, a helmet of salvation upon his head. He put on the garments of vengeance for clothing, and clad with zeal as a cloak. According to their deeds, accordingly he will repay. Fury to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. To the islands he will repay recompense. However, he, the Lord, would come under cover, as a servant, a suffering one, in Isaiah 53. And along comes Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed priest, king of David's lineage, the Son of God. In the Gospel of John, the Word, the expression of God, which is just as much God. He taught law, he taught love. He healed and forgave and taught obedience to God and himself. He showed compassion to those too weak to obey, and anger on those too proud to obey. Read any of the Gospels at random. They'll tell you. And that last group, they torture-killed him. That was all right, though. He planned for it. He even provoked them to do it. Mel Gibson's hit movie, The Passion, tried to show how bad it was, but if it really revealed the worst of it, it would have been banned and the makers would have been jailed. They could not have shown how Jesus took into his own heart the guilt of every monstrous abuser and the pain of every wounded victim, along with the petty faults and small hurts of everyone's life. Compared to that, the pain of hanging by nails in his wrists under a blazing sun might have seemed a relief. That was what released his scream, my God, why have you forsaken me?" But he still died forgiving and consoling and trusting and triumphant. 3 days later he rose even more triumphantly to call us into his life, to be the earthly ambassadors for his heavenly kingdom, to apply his love and his law to our own lives and into whatever area of life we can, even entire societies and cultures, until his return. You know what Jesus teaches about life and work and marriage and family and love and death and sorrow and joy, even about our own words and thoughts. You might not know he gives you the ability to follow him by the power of his Spirit, the support of his assembly, also known as the church, and the guiding of his word, the Bible. What if you refuse? Jesus tells us in chapter 3 of John's Gospel, "For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." That, of course, is the famous John 3:16. And then follows the rest. 17. "For God sent his Son not into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believes on him is not condemned, but he that believes not is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. This is the condemnation, that light has come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that does evil hates the light, and neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that does truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, for they are wrought in God. Reread verse 19. God's judgment is that his light invades the world, while those committed to the world want to stay in the dark, just as our first parents in Genesis 3 tried to hide from God after their rebellion. But God would not let them hide. Neither can anyone hide from him, Jesus, in eternity. Those of us who serve God, Jesus, who are uplifted as his friends, who are adopted as his children, we will continue to live and learn and grow in his light. Revelations 21:22. Those who refuse him will become lovers of darkness, immune to his love, tormented by his light, which beats down on them like hellfire with no promise of relief. Revelation 14. You probably don't hate God or Jesus, but you might not trust him either. What you decide now is a step in one of those directions. Either step is a risk. Stepping to him risks losing that faulty yet maybe pleasant life you know. Stepping away from him risks becoming a thing that never wants to love him or know his love. Which path do you want to risk? And what to do if you want to embrace Jesus? Pray to commit yourself to God, Jesus, their Spirit. Turn from what you know is wrong on God's terms, the Bible. Ask him to give you his power to do what is right by his Holy Spirit. Study the Bible and pray regularly. Find a caring church that teaches the Bible and the gospel as explained above. If you've never been baptized, do it. If you have been, renew it with a public commitment to Christ. Share your faith with fellow believers in regular church going and fellowshipping and taking communion, and with the non-believers in your life, with care and compassion, not judgment or hysteria. Live your life with Jesus as your guide and your guard to supply you with the grace and gifts needed to do your best and obey him. Try not to mess up, but if you do, run to him for forgiveness and for help to do better. Jesus dares you to trust him. What is keeping you from his challenge?